Why lack of sleep makes you fat? According to a study conducted by a team of researchers at King's College London, lack of sleep has direct consequences on weight gain. Less sleep equals more calories. Sleeping well could prevent obesity. This is what British researchers suggest in a study published in the European Journal of Clinical Nutrition. According to this work, people who sleep less than the recommended 7 to 8 hours per night consume on average 385 more calories the next day. To reach this conclusion, the researchers reviewed 11 studies that sought to understand the link between sleep deprivation and weight gain. According to these different studies, having short nights causes participants to have a bigger appetite the next day, especially for foods that are higher in fat than in protein. On this channel, we approach health from a global point of view by working on the 4 pillars of health: diet, physical activity, mental health and sleep. If you are not yet a subscriber to the Top Fitness Health YouTube channel, consider subscribing, and if you want to be notified when a new video is released, consider activating the little bell. Lack of sleep a factor in obesity. The main cause of obesity is an imbalance between caloric intake and expenditure. Gerda K. Pott, researcher health and nutrition who participated in the work, told The Telegraph. This study adds to the accumulated evidence that lack of sleep contributes to this imbalance. Our results show that lack of sleep is the third factor in weight gain after diet and exercise. But how to explain this phenomenon? According to the researchers, it is all a question of hormonal imbalance. At night, the body produces a hormone, leptin, which gives a feeling of satiety. This explains why we do not wake up at night to eat. The shorter the night, the less this hormone is secreted and the higher the level of ghrelin, a hormone that stimulates appetite. It's not much more complicated than that. Are you getting enough sleep? There is no set standard for the ideal number of hours a person should sleep. It depends on your age, activity level and body type. Most adults need about 8 hours of sleep. But some people get less than 7 hours and are still quite functional. Others need a minimum of 9 hours to function properly. However, according to sleep specialist Professor Julie Carrier, people who get only 6 hours of sleep and don't experience symptoms of sleepiness during the day are extremely rare. How do you know if you've had enough sleep? According to the experts at the American Sleep Foundation, getting enough sleep simply means being able to function until the end of the next day without feeling sleepy. Here is the example given by Charles Morin, professor at School of Psychology, an expert on sleep problems, in his book, Overcoming Sleep Enemies. Usually, a well-rested person remains alert, even in an overheated room while listening to an uninteresting lecture following a heavy meal. Another clue is that if you tend to hit the snooze button on your alarm clock in the morning, you probably didn't get enough sleep. Another way to find out your natural sleep needs is to calculate your average amount of time you sleep during your annual vacation. For most people, this would be more than the usual amount of time. Finally, you can evaluate your level of daytime sleepiness thanks to a standardized test, the Epworth test. It consists of only 8 questions and takes only a minute to complete. Can you sleep too much? According to sleep specialist, Professor Julie Carrier, no study has shown that sleeping long nights on a regular basis could have any harmful consequences. On the other hand, for several years now, statistics have shown that sleeping little, less than 7 hours, or a lot, more than 8 hours, is associated with a reduced life expectancy. However, according to recent studies, it would seem that it is not really the fact of sleeping a lot that is at fault. Rather, it is other factors that long sleepers seem to share, such as fragmented sleep, greater fatigue. A person who sleeps long hours should therefore not try to shorten his or her sleep hours, but simply take care of his or her health, as best as possible, concludes to sleep specialist Professor Julie Carrier. Are you an early bird or a night owl? It now seems to be accepted that the tendency to be an early riser or a late sleeper is in our genes and linked to circadian rhythms. These rhythms are directly dependent on the internal biological clock. It is possible, but only to a certain extent, to adjust one's biological clock, according to the constraints of life, such as the arrival of a child or a new work schedule. Light therapy and melatonin, the sleep hormone, can be used. But it is rare that people who naturally tend to be active and alert in the morning become true night owls. And vice versa. It's also good to know that the biological clock tends to change during adolescence. It is therefore normal for teenagers to want to go to bed later and stay in bed longer in the morning. This would be a biological issue, not just a whim or a desire to keep the party going. In this context, various groups, particularly in the United States, are calling for classes to start later in the morning, in order to respect the normal circadian rhythm of adolescence. Sleep hygiene. Falling asleep and sleeping well. Whether they are psychologists, doctors, researchers, consultants or therapists, sleep experts agree on a dozen ways to facilitate both falling asleep and the quality of sleep. First, a bedroom dedicated exclusively to sleep and sex. The bedroom is a place for sleep and sexual activities. No TV or computer, and don't do schoolwork or office work in it. The bedroom should be quiet, dark, inspiring and soothing. Cool rather than hot, around 18 degrees Celsius. Don't hesitate to sleep with the window open. If there is too much noise in the room, you can install a fan. Its background noise will mask the other noises. Have a low-intensity bedside lamp. The bed should be comfortable by your own standards and supportive. Second, routine and regularity. Wait until you are sleepy before going to bed. If you are not tired, do some relaxing activity while you wait for sleep to come. Try to get up at about the same time each morning, even on days off. This will help regulate your biological clock and make it easier to fall asleep at night. Don't hesitate to expose yourself to light first thing in the morning. Third, quietness before going to bed. Establish a bedtime ritual. Before going to bed, you can read something light, listen to music, meditate, do a visualization, write your journal, take a bath. It is important that, as much as possible, you have the same routine night after night. Avoid bright light. Try to deal with your problems or put them aside temporarily, before going to bed. This is not the time to worry. Anxiety is one of the biggest causes of insomnia. Before you go to bed, this is not the time to deal with bills or play an intense video game. Give yourself the pleasure of a stress buffer of about 30 minutes. Fourth, get more exercise. If done regularly, exercise makes it easier to fall asleep and induce deeper sleep. On the other hand, intense and unusual exercise can prevent you from falling asleep properly. Exercise should also be avoided 2 to 3 hours before bedtime, as it can interfere with sleep. The ideal time to exercise is late afternoon or early evening. Having sex, on the other hand, is an exercise that can be done just before going to sleep. This stimulates the production of endorphins, hormones that promote relaxation and well-being. Fifth, adapt your food. It's best not to go to bed hungry. A light snack can help you sleep, but don't eat a large meal right before bed. Dinner should be finished 2 to 3 hours, if not more, before bedtime. And don't drink too much before bedtime to avoid being woken up by the urge to urinate. Sixth, avoid caffeine and nicotine. To sleep well, it is best to limit nicotine consumption, which is a stimulant, especially near bedtime. The same goes for caffeine, coffee, tea, chocolate, energy drinks, colas. This is especially important in the evening because caffeine stays in the body for an average of 3 to 5 hours. But some people feel the effects for up to 12 hours. Also, even when caffeine doesn't prevent sleep, it can still disrupt sleep cycles and reduce the amount of deep sleep. 7th. Alcohol should be avoided. Alcohol is a harmful sleep aid. Although it can make it easier to fall asleep, alcohol reduces the quality of sleep, among other things, because of the multiple, often unconscious, awakenings it causes. Moreover, it disrupts sleep cycles and often accentuates snoring and sleep apnea problems. This results in a less restful and less regenerative night. 8th. Regarding naps. Not all experts agree on the subject of naps. Some claim that they interfere with normal sleep. People feel less tired at night and fall asleep less well. Others say that naps can be considered a beneficial addition to the night, a real invigorator, but only if you are already sleeping well. But most agree on the following points. People with insomnia should not take naps or they will have even more sleep problems. The ideal time to nap is between 2 and 3 p.m. This is when we feel a certain amount of sleepiness naturally generated by our biological clock. Most importantly, naps should last no longer than 30 minutes. One study concluded that the optimal length of naps was 10 minutes, compared to other naps of 5, 20 and 30 minutes. 10-minute naps were found to be the most beneficial for increasing alertness, countering fatigue and improving vigor and cognitive performance. Their effects were felt up to 2.5 hours after waking up. Shorter naps had little effect. Longer naps caused some post-awakening drowsiness and their beneficial effects were no more lasting than those of 10 minutes. An alarm clock can be set at 15 minutes, 5 minutes of dozing and 10 minutes of sleeping, to ensure that you do not oversleep. In the elderly, it seems that longer naps can be beneficial, especially since their more fragile sleep patterns mean that they generally only manage to sleep for 7 hours a night. In fact, statistics show that when both daytime and nighttime sleep are taken into account, the total sleep time of older adults is comparable to that of other adults. 9th. If you still can't fall asleep after about 30 minutes, don't blame yourself. Stress and anxiety are the enemies of sleep. Instead, get out of bed and do something relaxing under a dim light. Reading, knitting, listening to soft music, etc. Return to bed when you are tired. If you wake up at night, avoid constantly looking at the clock. You can even turn it over before going to bed. Looking at the clock will again increase stress. However, if you feel like you've been awake for more than 30 minutes, get up and go through the routine described above. If you have trouble falling asleep or waking up at night more than 3 times a week for more than a month, or if you feel sleepy for no apparent reason, talk to a doctor. You may have sleep apnea or restless leg syndrome, for example. 10th. Sleeping pills should be avoided at all costs. In rare circumstances, sleeping pills may occasionally help, such as in cases of insomnia caused by acute and temporary stress or jet lag. But they should only be used as a last resort and always for a short period of time, a few weeks at most. They lose their effectiveness over time and the dose cannot be increased indefinitely. Moreover, the sleep they induce is not as good as natural sleep. They can also cause long night wakings that the sleeper will not remember. The sleeper may mistakenly believe that he or she has had a good night's sleep. Sleeping pills can also cause side effects such as hangovers, drowsiness, anxiety and decreased memory and concentration. Finally, when sleeping pills are discontinued, a rebound effect can occur, characterized by increased sleep difficulties and severe anxiety. Never mix alcohol and sleeping pills. Start doing sleep cures. Is it possible to make your sleep even more beneficial with sleep cures? Nicole Grattan, a sleep specialist for many years who has published some 15 books on the subject, believes so. According to her, all aspects of lifestyle, healthy eating, regular exercise, daily exposure to sunlight, stress management, can have a decisive influence on increasing the quality and depth of sleep. And when sleep becomes deeper, you get the same rest with less sleep. She also suggests doing sleep cures when you feel you have a sleep debt. These involve staying in bed for 10 to 12 hours for one night or up to 7 nights in a row, either at home or in a vacation setting. Even if you don't sleep all that time, just lounging in bed in the dark would be very rejuvenating. If you are not yet a subscriber to the Top Fitness Health YouTube channel, consider subscribing, and if you want to be notified when a new video is released, consider activating the little bell. See you soon for more videos. And until then, take care of yourself.